Right now, in our video today, in our presentation, you've seen a lot of information about how to inspect for Chinese drywall, tainted Chinese drywall, and also Howard's given us a lot of great information. But I mean, Howard, after inspecting hundreds of homes, there has to be some things that you've really seen.
Yeah, you'd be amazed. It's back. You think back in the peak time, which is '04 to '06, the subcontractors, they were scraping and clawing for any drywall they could get their hands on. So they were using multiple suppliers because they were being rationed, and they were under great pressure from the general contractor, which was under pressure from the homeowner because and the builders in order to get these houses complete. So they would, whether they were borrowing sheets from the buddy down the street or getting different suppliers. So you would see a mix of tainted and non-tainted drywall, American and Chinese drywall, which I call blended homes. And those blended homes, you'll see even where the half-inch went where 5/8 should have gone, and 5/8 went where half-inch should have gone, and they spent more effort to try and blend the different sizes than it would if they just had the right size, because that just shows you the nature of trying to use what they could at the time.
Wow. So half inch is the side of the drywall that you see it in most, or is it in all drywalls?
Well, yes, half-inch is the majority of the cases. It's that generic, non-fire rated, non-type X, non-green, that type of stuff. So that's the majority of what the homes are constructed on the interior. There are some cases of 5/8, quarter inch, and 1 inch, and maybe some green board that's been documented. But the majority is the half-inch. That's the majority of the cases is that half-inch type of drywall.
What other kind of things have you seen out there?
Oh, I've even seen it. Typically, you do 5/8 on the ceiling because the truss spacing and the fire rating usually warrants the 5/8. But we've even seen it where it looks like they ran out of 5/8 and shimmed down the half-inch and blended in one ceiling half-inch and 5/8.
Oh my gosh.
So you can't always just go up in the attic. So there's two reasons why you just can't go up in the attic and tell someone what they have. One, if you go up and see, type X, certain 5/8 type drywall, that tells you that particular sheet has it, but that doesn't tell you anything about the walls. It might give you an indicator that they at least made an attempt to build it per code and do it the right way, seeing the 5/8 on the ceiling. But we've seen it, whether it's on the ceilings or walls, we've seen in an entire home that every stitch of drywall is all the half-inch tainted Chinese drywall, which is actually has some issues on the code side because they put half-inch where the 5/8 should have been. So it's, you can see that almost the desperation of the subs to complete the project. So you can almost kind of see it when you look back on how they put some of the stuff together.
What's the most extreme case you've seen?
Well, the trickiest one I've come across where it was in the upper half of the master suite, and that was tricky because usually you go around and I focus on the receptacles because the gases are heavier than air, and it's a good way to do a comprehensive check. But this particular one, you had a switch that was up and away from the receptacle that showed it, but the receptacle didn't, and it was tricky because you kind of have to know some of the construction methodologies, and that kind of helps. But the furring and the insulation and the blocking kind of made that one a little tricky. So just to see it on the upper half of one room, that was a tricky one, and how that came around.
That's pretty interesting. But now you had to determine, how do you go and determine in a house what's good and tainted without having to rip the entire home apart?
Well, the trick is air quality doesn't pick it up. The drywall lab testing is kind of a shot in the dark because you got to make sure you get the tainted drywall, and if you're going to do all that expense on sampling it, you got to make sure you get it. And the best way to do it is to look if X causes Y and Y is present, then that deduction can tell you that, all right, tainted drywall is present in that area. So it's being able to, it's the experience and knowledge of knowing where to look and how to look, and the levels of how it affects and how it corrodes the various metal components. And the majority, it's copper. Copper is the most prevalent throughout the home, and it's the most susceptible to the tainted drywall and being able to pick up the various effects that it has on that copper. So, and the coil is almost like reading tea leaves. You got to know you can almost judge how much drywall is in there based on how much the coils are affected, and you look for suspect signs, and that kind of is an indicator on the prevalence throughout the home. And then you got to focus in on the other specific areas, and then the switches and receptacles and the copper components and the plumbing pipes and refrigerators and appliances, you can kind of go around and make an assessment of a home by focusing on those particular aspects, picking up on some key indicators and seeing the effects and be able to recognize what is oxidation versus corrosion, and recognizing the copper oxide and copper sulfide is that black soot that's on that copper. So be able to recognize that, the quantities, and looking for consistencies and seeing where it is throughout the home and kind of drawing a conclusion after you do the full inspection.
Well, viewers, I mean, we've heard a lot of great information on this video, and Howard has just really provided a lot of good information to us. And so what I think we should do now is go ahead and let's do a review on Chapter 4.
By now you should not only have a pretty comprehensive understanding of what Chinese drywall is and how to identify it, but also be on the road to being an authority in your community. To receive your certificate of training from Chinese Drywall Screening LLC, there is one more thing. After you finish your review of Chapter 4 and feel you are ready to go, we need you to take our certification exam. The number and instructions are in your workbook. If you have any questions or concerns, please email us at inspectors@chinesedrywallscreening.com. Also, please make sure to keep your information current with us so that you can get continuous information as we learn more about Chinese drywall. Thank you for choosing Chinese Drywall Screening.